Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. On my channel, I share detailed tutorials, tips and tricks on how to make sewing better and easier and fun as well. Feel free to comment below with projects you'd like me to teach, and I will once I can. Do not forget to subscribe, please like and share. For today, I'm going to be teaching how to cut a straight pencil skirt with perfect fit. Now, I'm not going to put in that on this skirt because we're going to be performing a little bit of magic at the back of this skirt. So for this project, you're going to be needing certain materials. You're going to be needing your tape, of course, your chalk. I always use my pins, the scissors for cutting, and your measurements as well. So the measurements I'll be using today are waist 29, hip 43, and a knee round of 37. So I always do this to get the width of my knee. I subtract 6 from my hips. So let's start imputing our measurements. So to get this width and length, it all depends on the measurements you're working with. For the length, I'm using a length 21 for my skirts, but I added like 1 inch allowance. My hip is the widest width I have on my measurements, which is 43, and 43 divided by 4 gave me 10.75, and I added 2 inches to that for allowance, which gave me 12.75. As you can see, I have 12.75 here. And then for the back, I added 2 inches allowance. So 12.75 plus 2 gave me 14.75. So that's 14.75. So now, my side to hip is 9 inches, and I'll be adding a waistband of like 1.5 inches. So if I subtract 1.5 from 9, 1.5 from 9 is going to give me 7.5 inches. So instead of me using 7.5 inches, I'm just going to use 8 inches because I'm also going to, take this half allowance to sew on the band to it. So I'm going to be taking 8 inches. I hope we understand. I'm going to be taking 8 inches for my waist measurement, for my hip measurement, my hip line. So this is my hip line, 8 inches. And for the back as well, I'm going to be imputing 8 inches. So for this tutorial to be very clear, I'll just draw a straight line here so you can see that this whole line is for my hips. And mind you, yes, I know this is black color. I placed the front right on top of my back. So I have 2 different fabrics here. This is for the front and the wider one for the back. So we're going to be putting our zip allowance. I usually use 1 inch for zip allowance. So here I have 1 inch and I have 1 inch down here. So you can decide if you want the slit at the back to be overlap or to be open. For this tutorial, I'm going to do the open slit, and maybe the next one I'll do will be an overlap slit, so we all learn and know how to, do those types of slits. So now I have drawn my zipper line, right? This is very easy, mind you. Just our advice that you watch the tutorial first before you try to cut it, so you understand it and then you try to work on it, okay? So now, first thing I did was to measure from my waist to my hip line, and I told you I was adding a 1.5 inch waistband. So instead of it to be 9 as usual, which is my waist to hip, I'm using 8 inches. It's supposed to be 7.5, but I added half inch to join the waistband to the waist of the skirt. So I arrived at 8 inches. So if yours is 8 and you want to use the same 1.5 inch waistband, you subtract 1.5 from 8, which is 6.5, and then you add half inch, which is 7. So your waist to hip will be 7. So you do the same thing depending on the measurements you have. Now, to the main thing where the fitting of the skirt is going to be perfect. Now remember I told you my hip is hip 43. So for hip 43, the hip line to the under of your butt, I'll call that sitting allowance for the purpose of this tutorial. I'm going to be using 4 inches. I'll be using 4 inches. You know, if you take a good look at the human butt, it's not flat. It's not like a flat surface. It has a little bit of curve, no matter how small it is. Mind you, this measurement differs. If I'm sewing for a hip 36 or a hip 38 or even a hip 40, I would use 3.5 inches. If I'm sewing for lesser than that, I would use 3 inches. If I'm sewing for someone with a bigger hip, say hip 52 or hip 50, I'm definitely going to use 4.5 or 5 inches. You can always take the measurements on the person so you are sure that you're working with the right measurements. But I would just, take this judgment based off of the measurements that I'm seeing and the person's body in question. So now I told you that I'm using a hip 43, which is my measurement, and I took from this hip line, from our waist to hip here, I'm taking 4 inches down below. Now for the back part, that's towards this part, I'm going to be measuring just a little bit of, I'll be measuring ½ an inch. Now let me tell you something about what I'm doing here. Now if you notice on the human body, right, the female's body, some people have hips, right, and the back of their butt is not pointed or is not too pointed. Some other people have very pointed bum, but their hips are not that protruding. So you need to pay attention to all of these things when you're adding to this part, because this part is going to be the back, the butt, the middle of the butt. Just as you do breast cuts for blouses and all that, you also have to do a little bit of curving here because the butt is not flat. Remember, this is a perfect fit pencil skirt tutorial, and I'm sharing with you how to get the perfect skirt for your pattern. Now I measured 4 down here, I measured ½ an inch here, and I'm just going to join and keep on with the tutorial. Okay, so from the waistline I'm going to draw a straight line to the ½ inch that we marked. Then from the ½ inch we're going to draw another straight line to the 4 inch down here. So as we can see, we have this. Next thing I need you to note is that you always have to smoothen out angles when making patterns, because it's not like the bum is like a trapezium or a triangle. It's curved. So as I've made this line, it's just a guide for me, and all I'm going to do now is just curve this out. You could do it with your chalk, or if you have a curved ruler, great, just use that. But I usually use. So I had no idea that my phone stopped recording. I have to start from where I stopped. I'm sorry for the glitch. So I was saying that if you have a curved ruler, you could just smoothing out this place. That's this back. And then you're good to go. But I usually use my freehand sketch. So I curved that and I cut it out. And then all I did on this other side was to impute my measurements. So my waist rather is 29 inches, and 29 divided by 4 gave me 7.25 plus 2 inches. Then my hip is 43 inches. 43 divided by 4 is 10.75 plus 2 inches, which is 12.75. And then my knee measurements. To get my knee measurements, I subtract 6 inches from my hip measurement. So that's 43 minus 6. That gave me 37. And 37 divided by 4 is 9.25. So I imputed 9.25 here, like this, and then I added 2 inches to it. And then I joined my lines and I made sure I curved my hip line because, of course, just like this part, no part on the human's body is angled. So you have to smoothen it out with a curve. And that is all for our pattern. Very easy, you must say, because I don't like using darts to sew anymore. I feel it's outdated, but it however depends on the style I am trying to achieve. If I'm trying to be dramatic, if I'm trying to be creative and all that, I could still impute that, but I wouldn't impute darts in my skirts, no matter the type, even though it's a pencil skirt, it's a skirt with frills, whatever the style, I wouldn't include that anymore. So I hope you learn something from this tutorial. I hope you like it, and I hope you're going to comment below and share with your friends. Thank you so much. In my next video, I would most likely join this. I don't want this to be too long, and welcome to the family. Please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching and have a good day. This is precision tutorial number 1, and this is the final look of our best fit pencil skirt tutorial pattern.